I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, good morning, y'all. As you can tell by the thumbnail, some of y'all already know this, but as y'all can tell by the thumbnail, our Texas Bunkhouse retreat is officially booked. It is officially booked. It is authorized and approved by Ergo Next Insurance. I have already spent the money and reserved the cabin itself, so that's done. There's no way that that gets taken away at this point. The event is posted up on the channel, so it's free, you know what I'm saying? Go get yourself signed up. I don't know how many people we're gonna have on this one. I'm kind of curious because the cabins hold up to 94 people. I've currently, when I set the event, I capped the registrations at 60 people. But I mean, you know, if we have more people that want to come though, I don't know. I'd like to make it happen. It's gonna mean I need volunteers for sure, which I'm gonna need volunteers anyways. It's cooking for that many people is gonna be quite a feat. So I will be asking for volunteers for the cooking, helping to cook and clean and whatnot, but I don't think that's gonna be an issue with a big old place full of handyman. I think we're gonna have some help in that particular way. Also gonna be asking some of y'all, or all of y'all, I guess, really, whoever has something to bring, probably asking y'all to bring some cooking equipment, because I can't fly across the country with a bunch of stainless steel pots and pans and stuff. We've got a whole commercial kitchen there, but that's it. Hey, what's up? Jordan Wilden, good morning. Who Mike Jones said, morning Ray, haven't been on in a while. Hope you and the fam are doing well. We are, man. I hope you are too. Jordan said, when and where is this one? I missed it. This is going to be in Bonham State Park in Texas. So just a little bit northeast of Dallas. Just northeast of DFW, Bonham State Park. It's a barracks situation. So we've got 4 barracks buildings that hold 20 people each. And when I say barracks, I mean, so these are bunks, right? They're like literally like the military style bunk beds. In fact, they might be military bunk beds because the park, all of Texas barracks and their parks, those all used to be Army Corps of Engineers barracks and park. Well, they weren't parks per se when they were Army Corps of Engineers. It was just land that the Army Corps of Engineers had and utilized. But yeah, just old metal barracks, you know, with a mattress on them. You got to bring your own linens, whether that be a sheet, you know, and blankets and pillows or sleeping bag, whatever you want to bring. But it holds a single person, not 2 people. I don't really care, I guess, if you, well, yeah, I probably do care. Y'all don't. We're not going to be mixing sexes in the barracks, which is one of the great things about having a 4 barracks situation. A different park that I almost got for March instead of April was 2 barracks. I think it was 48 people total, 24 people per barrack. But the problem is we're not going to be sticking women and men, you know, all trying to sleep in one big open communal room together. That's a recipe for disaster. So with segregating by the sexes, if you only have 2 barracks, you're kind of capped at however many dudes show up. And then the women's barracks going to be half empty because half of y'all don't bring your wives or whatever. So having a 3 or a 4 barrack situation means we can do 3 barracks for men, 1 barracks for women, and that'll probably do it. That'll probably, I think, get the job done. But, you know, it's free. It is, well, it's not free, but Ergo Next Insurance paid for it. Ergo's the company that bought Next Insurance now. I was worried that, you know, I don't know anything about Ergo. I was a little worried about whether or not our really close relationship between them and this community is going to continue, because they've hosted a few events for us like that, you know, and they don't ask for anything in return other than that I do what I'm doing and, you know, just talk about them. But Yeah, they got bought by Ergo, and it looks like Ergo is, in fact, still a big supporter of this community. So that's awesome. If y'all want to thank them for this and make sure they keep sponsoring these in the future, go over there to Next Insurance or Ergo Next Insurance. I don't know what the website. Well, there's a link in the description either way. So just use my link. That's how they know I sent you, is by you clicking my link. Go get a quote. If it ain't the right quote, don't buy it. Y'all already know that. I don't want you buying anything that you don't think is the right thing for you. But go get a quote just to say, hey, thanks. Please sponsor another one in June or July for Colorado. And then please sponsor another one for California. Please sponsor another one for the Washington, D.C. area. I'd like to do 4 of these a year. You know, more would be even nicer, but if we got to do 4 of these a year, just 1 per quarter, that'd be great. But the way we make that happen is clicking links, which I think is a pretty fair trade-off, you know, for a free cabin stay weekend. Bunkhouse event. So this one is set up as a 18 and older only, by the way. Again, because of the communal sleeping arrangements. Now, if you have kids and you want to bring kids, there's a few things you can do. You know, first of all, we're not out in the middle of nowhere. There's hotels and stuff nearby that you can rent, and you can just go sleep there and then show up in the morning for daytime activities. There's also cabins, pretty sure there's cabins at this park, that you can rent inside the park. There's that. And what else? I mean, that's about it. Oh, yeah. I think they have RV spots inside the park as well. And you'll also find in the description of this video a link for 𝗬𝗪𝗟𝗏, which is where you can rent an RV. I think it's about $100 a night when it's all said and done. But I mean, from what I understand, you pick it up, it's already loaded full of water and everything. And all you've got to do is just use it for a few days and return it. And they, you know, they go dump the waste and refill the water and all that for you. So you can try 𝗬𝗪𝗟𝗏. So if you got kids, if you want to bring kids, feel free to bring them and be there for the daytime activities. You just can't sleep in our communal sleeping arrangements with the kids. I think that makes sense. It's a +1, so it's not a +4. Now, I'll tell you, you know, all you really got to do to get around that is just so you go like get a reservation. Your reservation is you and a +1. Well, do another reservation and another +1. I'm not really in the business of super hard trying to restrict people. I think the bigger point I'm making is don't bring, you know, your 7 subcontractors with you unless all of y'all are really truly interested, you know, building handyman businesses. I just want to make sure we have plenty of room for plenty of people because I think this will be a big one. Breathing a little heavier today. I'm tired today. And I have to say, yesterday I felt pretty tired. And my ears, I don't know a better way to say it. Maybe this just isn't a thing that happens to me until the age of 45. But my ears felt clogged. They still do. Like right now they feel clogged. But all day yesterday I just kept thinking, why do my ears feel clogged? I've never had what I would call my ears feeling clogged. Even when I've had flus and colds and stuff, never felt like my ears were clogged. I would never use that word. But that's how I felt yesterday. Today I feel pretty rough. I'm starting off later. You know, y'all usually see me when it's still pitch black outside. Well, you don't see me because it's pitch black outside. So I'm thinking I got a little bug, which makes sense because we had to bring Silas home from school the other day because he had a little bug at school, like a really low grade fever. But still, he just wasn't feeling good. Falling asleep in class and stuff. There he goes. Y'all can't hardly tell, but that's an owl over there flying towards that palm tree. He's probably laying in it. Yep. Oh, no. No, he's not. Well, hey now. No, that's not an owl. Boy, that sure looked exactly like some of the owls we have around here, but that is not an owl. I don't just assume everything's an owl. That one really was flying a little more like one. And yes, it would be a little late in the day to be seeing one, but you do see them anywhere from like 4 to 6 a.m. flying back to their roost, their nest or whatever. Y'all got any questions, throw them in. Don't ever think, oh, he's talking, I'm gonna wait till he's done. I'm never done. I have developed the skill of just talking right through these with whatever. Consider me to be an LLM, and your comments are my prompts. Whatever you throw in there, I'm just gonna start riffing on. But really though, let's make sure Next Insurance wants to sponsor more of these. It was very hard to convince this whole new company with this whole new marketing team. These things are expensive. Like, I'll tell y'all, I won't give you all the numbers for it because I don't even know if the clients consider that to be like private information. But, you know, I paid, just put it to you this way, I'll be out of pocket on this, but I'll be out of pocket less than $1,000. But I've already reserved the cabin. Just that was $3,000. I still have to buy my airline ticket, still have to get a rental car. And then, you know, if we have, let's say we have 20 people, that'll be $1,000 worth of groceries I have to buy. And then just imagine more and more people. So if we have 40 people, $2,000 worth of groceries. If we fill out the cap that I put on there at 60 people, $3,000 worth of groceries. But if we only have 20 or 30 people, I'll be out of pocket at least $1,000 on this. So it's a lot of money that they provide. And the good news is we have this baseline, and it's a nice low baseline because we haven't done one of these events in a while. Plus the holidays just happened. So it gives us a really good sort of background rate of what kinds of conversions Next Insurance can expect by working with me without sponsoring events. And what we want to see is, you know, this event is April 16th. Yeah, so let's just say for the whole month of February and April, what I'm hoping to see is just more clicks, or February, March, and April, especially March and April. We just want to see, generally speaking, more clicks between now and then, or conversions, or whatever marketing term you want to use. And they want to see the difference. They want to see that flat line before, and then they want to look at that spike and go, okay, so we usually get X number of clicks, and then we sponsor a camp out, and everybody seems to like us enough to give us this number of clicks. Then later on, the clicks go back down to baseline because there's no more event, and they want more clicks, and they say, hey, you got another camp out coming up? That's how we keep it rolling. Edward Pitkin, good morning, sir. Good to see you, buddy. I think we got a little minor bug moving through the house. I can kind of feel it in my lungs too. I like this property here. I don't really know if anybody's doing much with it, but it's a lot of open land. And I feel like nobody's living there. I mean, look at it. It's just kind of empty. It looks like an interesting house back there. Last video I put out did pretty well. It's at more than 2,000 views in less than 24 hours, which is always good. That is a good number that I'm very happy to see. It seems like this AI that I built to help me with all that is doing his job, I would say. Next video's estimates, specifically looked at from the angle of estimates being a little bit like a gamble. Not in a bad way, not where you call something a gamble, you say it's a gamble and the idea is, you know, that you shouldn't do it, that it's too risky. Estimates are just part of our business. So it's about them being a gamble just in terms of, you know, if you go too high with your price, you're gambling that you might lose that client, that it may just be too expensive. So the gamble you're taking is you're gambling on losing the client. And if you estimate too low, maybe you're desperate for work and you're scared of not having any work, so you're trying to get your price low enough. You estimate too low, well, now you're gambling on whether or not you make any money. You may not make any money on that entire job if you make it too low. It's not hard to lose money on a job if you don't think it through well. So it's going to be about estimates and how they're a gamble and how to try to find that balance where you're not risking, you're not coming very close really to risking losing a good client, you know, and that's part of it too. Is a lot of times if your pricing is fair and for the client you lose that job because you're too expensive. So if they think you're too expensive when in fact your pricing is just absolute market, you know, market value, normal everyday industry standards. What's that? Huh. I see a road I never saw before, way off in the distance, big dirt road up on the mountainside. But yeah, if your pricing is too high for them and you're still somewhere around that industry standard, that's just a bad client. So that's part of the risk too. You got to be expensive enough to not get the shittiest clients. You got to be, well, you don't have to be cheap enough for anything, actually. You can, there's a client for every price. I know that. Man, look, big old raven. Oh, giant. He's a beast. I love me some ravens. So that's what the next video is about. I'm going to tie it in with my new project estimator tool. If y'all don't know about that, you can go to bulletproofhandyman.com, upload a 1-minute video of your project, and it's gonna try to, anyways, I mean, who knows in the long run how well it'll succeed. I've been testing it a lot and I'm super happy with it, but what it's gonna try to do is really understand your video, understand the project. That's one AI is gonna do that. A different AI is gonna go off and do a deep research project on that project, on all the actual skills and materials and tools involved, and it's going to try to write itself a little handbook to make itself a systems expert on whatever sliding glass door, whatever the system is that's being worked on. And it's going to make that sort of database of expert knowledge. And then a third different AI is going to take all of that plus your prompt, in other words, your description of the problem, and whatever you describe as being your preferred way to solve the problem, and it's going to try to build you a step-by-step guide to get it solved. It's going to give you a range of how many hours it should take, a range, a high and low of what you could or should charge. It's going to give you links to the materials that you need from just like Home Depot, whatever's nearby and local. It's going to try to do a good job of answering all those questions that you don't have the answers to. At least give you a really, really strong starting place. Let's get off to the side. I don't know where this car's going. Phil Collins. Man, I can't believe I got Phil Collins is in my live stream. Phil, you lost 5K or 50K in the market? Oh, that's Mr. Truck with his dog, this yellow truck guy. He comes out here to the dirt road, lets the dog out, and he drives real slow, and the dog kind of gets its morning walk and poop in on the dirt road. Man, I can't believe I got Phil Collins in here. I can't believe Phil Collins lost either 5K or 50K in the market yesterday. What's the market? What do you mean the market? You mean you lost 5 or 50 grand in the S&P 500 or in Apple stock? Or is the market, does that mean Bitcoin to you? What do you mean when you say the market? Or are you just generally diversified and invest all over the place? Could you feel it coming in the air before it happened? I'm gonna finish my coffee right here, and I'm gonna put my coffee cup on one of these fence posts so I'm not carrying it for the next 2 miles to the next road. Oh yeah. What day is it? What day is it? Is it Saturday? Sunday? What day is it? Oh my God. It is Saturday. Okay. All right. It is Saturday. Oh, you know what would be cool? It's probably not possible, but if it was possible for me to get my 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪bot, which, by the way, y'all are, at some point I'll start calling him by his name, Handybot, but it's my 𝗪𝗪𝗪bot. If I could get Handybot to be able to come into my live streams and comment, that would be actually pretty interesting. So I could prompt it. It would have to be listening to me, so it'd have to be transcribing live. It can do all that though. And then I could give it prompts. I could just be like, hey, Handybot, how many people are signed up for that event in Texas right now? And y'all could watch them work and come back with an answer. I don't know if they're set up for that. That'd be interesting. Sometimes I feel like mine is a genius, which it has been at times, I'll tell you what. It has solved some very real problems for me. But other times I feel like something's missing. And I think a lot of that may just be that it doesn't have the same kind of permissions and access and skills and tools that a lot of the other ones do. But I don't know, like, which permissions and skills and tools, because I feel like I've given it quite a bit. It's not allowed to go, you know, it doesn't have my credit card. It's not allowed to just go clicking around on the internet and looking for shit and buying it. But sometimes he's a genius, and sometimes I'm like, well, you're just a AI, which is not true. It's not just an AI. He'll hear me say this someday, because there will come a time when I'm able to just give him access to my entire YouTube channel. Actually, I have a YouTube API, and I can probably guarantee you, I'll bet my Handybot can just use my YouTube API and YouTube right into my analytics and just tell me anything I need to know real time. Yeah, he should be able to access pretty much everything, actually. He might replace some software I built. I spent days and days and days building software that downloads my transcripts and does all kinds of magic to them to turn them into like the best AI training software, or AI training data rather. I'll bet you I can just give my HandyBot my YouTube API and give it a basic explanation of what that software did. I bet you he'll just go and take care of it himself, and I won't even need my software as the middleman. Paul's Handyman, good morning. I'm dragging a little today, Paul. I think I got a little bug. All these people over here, they got their chicken coops, they got their sheep, they got their goats. It smells nice. I love the smell of a farm in the weirdest way. Like I love the smell of like fresh manure that comes from having lots of animals. It rained last night, so it's all really like in the air right now. Jealous. I need to find me some land over here. There's like two things I want to do. I have this big goal of the ranch. Y'all know about the ranch. But at the same time, like on a smaller level, if I could just get 5 acres somewhere over here near me, 500 acres next year sounds amazing. I wish I had 5 acres now. But then what am I going to do, Because if I want to make the money to buy the 500 acres, I need to be pushing like all day, every day. I don't have, if I get 5 acres and start messing around with that, that's going to distract me from the bigger goals and the bigger projects that bring me the 500. But man, I just wish I had a little bit of land over here to just put up a little barn on and to get a few animals. My backyard is big. I've had plenty of goats. I've had goats and pigs and everything in my backyard. I've had plenty of that. That's cute. But need a little more land for that. But then what do? Live stream me putting up fencing and, building chicken coops. I'm sure people like watching that, but it doesn't really fit what I do. Paul's Handyman said I'm dragging a bit myself. It's raining here though. What kind of animals do you want? What kind of animals do I want? I mean, of course I want the usual. I want chickens, obviously, some number of chickens. They taste great and they make eggs, so you can't really lose with chickens. Put them on a chicken tractor out on some pasture, of course. Boy, that's... Hold on a second. Let me show y'all. There it is. The sun is behind that hill there. If I zoom in a little more, it'll switch cameras and actually get clearer. Maybe not. See like the haze over the little valley there. Anyways. I want some normal stuff like chickens, of course. But, I also want ducks. I've done a lot of research on ducks. Here's the deal with chickens is for meat, you want to get meat chickens. And if it's not for meat, if it's for eggs, you want to get egg-laying chickens. They do have dual-purpose breeds. But the problem with the dual-purpose breeds is by the time a chicken has really laid very many eggs at all, it just ages them, like meat-wise. There isn't a breed of chicken that you can get a lot of eggs from and then kill it for meat and have that meat be really like top quality meat. And the way I plan on paying my bills, generally speaking, once I have a ranch, the ranch has got to make money because it's got, property taxes and may even have payments that I need to make on the land. but it's going to have to pay its bills by selling food. And the reason that that's the particular way it's going to have to pay its bills is because the whole point of the ranch is safety and security long term. So the position I want the ranch to be in is that as long as there is an economy to participate in, well, I'm participating in the economy with my ranch, selling food and stuff to local restaurants, like nice local grown organic, dragon carrots or Amarillo carrots, all kinds of neat stuff. There's Mr. Yellow Truck Man. But the position I want to be in is that as long as there is an economy, I'm participating in it by raising and selling food. And I think that's just a noble way to make a living anyways. But then when the economy disappears and there's no more grocery stores to buy your groceries in, at that point in time, I want to just be able to switch gears and just say, okay, well, guess what? We already have wells pumping water. We already have crops in the ground. We already have animals ready to slaughter. We already have everything that we need, essentially. So you just switch gears, and instead of running your operation in such a way that it produces, maximum organic calories to sell locally, just switch gears and you change your operation so that you're producing what you need and or some to barter with, but you already have the food production going. So all that being said, I want the chickens, probably I like rare breeds, I like endangered species and stuff, so some rare breeds perhaps, but I want ducks. I found out ducks, there's some breeds of ducks are dual purpose egg plus meat, except, well, for one, duck meat I think is just better. Not that I've had tons of it, but I've had enough to form the opinion that it's better meat. But with ducks, some of those dual purpose breeds can give you a lot of eggs for like a year or two and actually still be very tasty and good meat. So looking heavy into that. I personally want some milk goats. I've had milk goats before. I've had my family on nothing but just raw, unpasteurized. Literally all you do is filter it. You milk the goats, you take it inside, you run the milk through some cheesecloth to just filter out any little bits of hair or anything that might have fallen in. You just filter it and cool it down. And we were on whole, organic, from our backyard goat's milk for like a year and a half. And I really like goat's milk, so I'd like some of that. But Emily loves, it's not Scottish Highland. She does love Scottish Highland cows, but there's a different cow whose name, Murray Grey. There we go. Emily loves the Murray Grey. And even with cows, my original plan was to get the Florida Cracker or the Texas Piney Woods. Both of those are breeds of cattle that were dropped off by the Spaniards in the Gulf, along the Gulf of America, dropped off by the Spaniards. And so that they could, as the ships came through in the future, essentially the idea was, they would multiply and you'd have cattle to harvest there. And the Piney Woods and the Florida Cracker, those just kind of became their own breed out in the wild. And then, of course, recaptured and bred some more. And they're smaller, which I like because if you're running a small homestead, maybe you don't want to have to deal with 800 pounds of cow all at once. Maybe it would actually be ideal to have a 400-pound cow and to have it give a little bit less milk, just everything on a smaller, less industrial scale. But I'll be damned, man. I looked up the Murray Grey. What a great cow that is. That is actually, it is a dual purpose milk and meat cow that I think I would enjoy. So I'll get some Murray Greys for Emily. And if I get Murray Greys for Emily, I'm probably not going to add Texas Piney Woods into the mix or the Florida Cracker into the mix. I do like rabbits, but I feel like the whole rabbit thing is really overdone. I think people over exaggerate you know, the attractive thing about the rabbits is they reproduce quickly, and they convert roughage, whatever you want to call that, you know, grass, plant matter, whatever. They convert roughage into protein, meaning rabbit meat, relatively quickly, like more efficiently and more quickly than a lot of breeds. Chickens are actually really high up there on that list. And using that conversion factor is actually a really good way to plan what animals you want to have, is which ones convert roughage into protein most efficiently. But I do like a rabbit breed called the silver fox. They bred it, they were trying to mimic, you know, fox pelts. People worked on this for centuries, actually trying to breed rabbits for the sole purpose of mimicking a fox. So the breed of rabbit is silver fox. It's got a beautiful silverish, you know, the blue was kind of what everybody was shooting for, but this bluish silver pelt that's just beautiful. I'd like to play around with some of that, I suppose. I love goats just in terms of goat's meat. I personally like the flavor of goat's meat. So I probably want to have some goats for meat. Goats eat weeds, not grass. If you want to just make 2 libraries of plants and you put a lot of things in one library that are called weeds and grasses, which is, you know, all kinds of, even like alfalfa, that's a weed. Alfalfa's not a grass. It's like a legume, actually, I believe. But alfalfa's more of a weed, and grass is a grass. Wheat is a grass. Corn even is a grass. Bamboo is a grass. Those are all grasses. But between weeds and grasses, goats eat weeds and sheep eat grass. So you can run them at different times across the same piece of land, and the goats will go through and take out all the weeds so the grass can grow, and then the sheep will go through and take out the grass, not all the way to the roots, you know, don't run them too much, let them take the grass down a little, and then the weeds start popping back up, and you can send the goats back in for the weeds and utilize the same property for 2 different animals at the same time, kind of double up on the load. The sheep, though, I don't mind eating sheep. They don't taste bad. The texture is slightly strange to me, although I don't think I'd have any problem just getting used to it anyways. But I don't want to have to, as much as I hate to say this, I don't know how valuable that wool really is. I mean, if there's an economy to participate in, then yeah, the wool you can sell. You can get specialty sheep that are a little more expensive, that have a highly desired wool, and you can sell that, I suppose. But man, if the economy ends and I'm just making it on my ranch, I don't know that I want the hassle of having to shear sheep. I should probably just go volunteer, honestly, is what I should do. I should go volunteer to shear sheep around here, find some place that raises them, and see if I can just give them some free labor in exchange for getting the experience and figuring out, is this something that I don't mind doing? Or is this something that, in fact, I really don't? I don't know. Sheep are dumb. I've had a couple in my life when I was much younger, and my mom had some. And man, they'll just stand out in the rain and just get soaked and then get sick and die. They're not even smart enough to just get under cover when they have cover to get under. So we'll see. Pigs too. Let me go catch up on some of these. Paul's Handyman said pretty landscape. It is pretty out here. Really is. Look at this now. I'll zoom y'all in a little there. It's a pretty morning because of all the rain we got last night. Devin said, bro, I'm over 860 pounds. I need to find food to fill me up. I'm over full. Well, that's not good, man. You got to fix that. Paul's Handyman said, have you thought about selling cows or lamb or the like? Yeah, I want to sell the meat. I also want to just sell the animals, especially if they're rare breeds that cost more. You can oftentimes just like pick a breed that's endangered that people really love and raise it just to sell them as more breeding stock. Now, of course, the females are going to be more valuable than the males. Very few mammals. You don't need one male per female. You can have one male per 10. One male. I mean, I've seen cattle ranches that have one bull and 100 cows. And that one bull in one season will impregnate all 100 cows on that one ranch. So, I mean, maybe they impregnate 98 instead of 100, but you have one bull can impregnate all of them. So the males, you still have to ultimately find something to do with them. Generally, you're going to be eating them. But yeah, I wouldn't mind raising them and selling them just as breeding stock. I'd rather raise them and sell them as meat, only because if I'm raising them and selling them as meat, the only way to do that is to have a meat producing operation in place. And that's kind of the goal, you know. I don't want the economy to end and then all of a sudden I go, oh shit, I've been raising all of these to sell. I'm not really equipped to start just transforming them all into packaged meat or into smoked meat and jerky. You know, I could have a whole jerky operation. In fact, I'll tell you something I've thought strongly about if I was doing this just more for fun. It's just having a jalapeno farm and not selling jalapenos specifically, but selling all the stuff you make from them. I have had my mother-in-law, she dried a bunch of jalapenos and then kind of ground them up the way that you put the red pepper flakes on your pizza, you know, at Pizza Hut, and you put those red pepper flakes on. She kind of made that kind of product, but out of jalapenos. And it was amazing. And she makes jalapeno jelly and stuff. And I'm just like, man, I like most of these jalapeno products. I love jalapenos in general. I could see me, you do jalapeno relishes and all kinds of stuff. I could see me just having a big old jalapeno ranch. But like I said, I want meat and plants. I want diversity. I want there to be a constant stream of different small batch things getting harvested at all times, so that if and when everything goes south, the calories are already at every stage of development on my property, and it's just a matter of continuing. So I probably want to sell meat because that means I'm going to have something set up to process the meat, and I can just more easily transition. Oh, excuse me, got some burps coming up. I'll just be able to more easily transition into that mode. Paul's Handyman said, I never had duck. Patrick doesn't like duck eggs. Are you kidding me? Man, when I was a little kid, we had a chicken coop with some chickens in it. And one day the neighborhood was all talking about these ducks. Somebody, we don't know where they came from or what, but all of a sudden, way out in the country, there was this little covey of ducks going around the neighborhoods. Nobody wanted too much to do with them, honestly. And so we went and caught, I don't know, 4 or 5 of them, put them in there with the chickens, and we started getting duck eggs. And man, for a family that raised its own eggs and ate eggs for breakfast literally every morning, because we always had fresh eggs, and you don't go spend money on other food when you already have eggs, especially when you're poor like we were. And when you got a fridge and there's duck eggs and chicken eggs in there, and it's just a matter of you choosing which one you want today, I went for the duck eggs almost every time. They felt so much richer to me, like more of a fatty texture. But yeah, I like the duck eggs. They had bigger yolks too, like more yolk to white ratio. And the yolks are my favorite part. Paul's Handyman said, what's it like? Duck meat is, well, it's like dark meat. This is my opinion. Everybody, has their own opinion. But for me, it was like dark meat on a chicken. Close to it anyways. But it was as if you take chicken as your starting point, but dark meat on a chicken. Give it a slightly different flavor and profile. But I would say the texture of the duck meat that I've had, and I've only had it a couple times, but The texture of the duck meat, I would call it more chewy, I guess. But that may just be because the chicken that I eat tends to, it's from the grocery store. So it's going to be pretty damn tender already because they're raised in horrible conditions. And then the duck, I don't know where the duck comes from, but it's probably a little chewier because it probably lived a more natural life where it used its muscles before I ate its muscles. But just think of more dark meat, I guess. I'm not sure what else to compare it to. I wouldn't compare it to turkey much at all. Starboy said faith, unity. Patrick said not as tasty as chicken eggs, tougher texture. They use duck eggs for baking cakes, etc. Paul's Handyman said interesting. Patrick said pigs are the most prolific breeders and value. I like pigs. I raised an American guinea hog in my backyard too. Actually, his name was Seymour. Oh man, that pig. Seymour, eventually, those pigs aren't made to live long lives. The ones that are bred for, purposes. Seymour was an American guinea hog, which was a famous frontier hog. Oh, sorry. Didn't even hear this guy coming. This guy was camping on the side of the road back there. Oh, he's in a hurry too. Anyway, Seymour was an American guinea hog. God damn, what is this guy doing? Shit. Just taking off like somebody ruined his day. Actually, you know what? If you're sleeping in your nice brand new truck on a dirt road in the middle of nowhere, maybe shit's not going super good for you. But the American guinea hog is a great hog to take out west if you were heading out west in the pioneer days, because unlike a lot of pigs, this one can survive on nothing but grass, just pasture. And I'm not talking about, all hogs can survive on pasture, depending on how you define pasture, but that usually means lots of other plants to eat, lots of root material, nuts, things like that. Whereas the American guinea hog, literally just pure, you could just feed it pure Bermuda, non-stop, nothing but Bermuda, just grass. And that hog will thrive. Made it to the road, by the way. That hog will thrive on just grass. Now, of course, you can feed it other stuff and it's going to do even better. And what you feed it is going to have a lot to do with how it tastes and stuff. But they are prized for their lard. That was a lard hog. It was also prized for its meat. Don't get me wrong, the meat is also amazing. But they were bred specifically as lard hogs, but also generally speaking as dual-purpose hogs, so that they could be good for lard and meat. But chefs love them for their lard. There's something about American guinea hog lard that chefs, like in the 1800s or whatever, really preferred. So highly likely that I'll have some hogs. Although hogs are rough on the land, they can be good on it too, of course, but they do require, they breed more, they make more meat. Very useful, very tasty. Everybody likes them. But as far as the poundage of meat, let's call it poundage of meat per acre of property per stocking density, is just such that if you don't want them doing too much damage to the land, you need more land to move them around on. So as you're allocating space and you're trying to decide what you want to do with your property, hogs are amazing. Very high converters. They'll convert anything into bacon. They'll convert apples into bacon. They'll convert roots into bacon. They convert grass. They convert everything that's edible. They're like true omnivores like we are. Everything under the sun that is edible, they will convert into bacon. And you can't ask for anything more than converting everything into bacon. But they are hard on the land. And another problem that you find is tons of people. I knew some folks up in Prescott, Arizona, actually. They ended up getting some chickens and some ducks one day. And then they got a few more. And then they started selling eggs. And then they got a few more. And they sold more eggs. And then some people said, hey, could you do like goats? And they got a few goats. They started going to the farmers market to sell their stuff because they had a lot of stuff. And then one day they got pigs. And people loved their organic, like free range bacon. But the problem was everybody only wanted the bacon. They would pay anything in the world for the bacon. But then they got the rest of this pig left over that I'm not saying is impossible to sell. But if you just looked at the amount of time it takes a regular person who's not a butcher to butcher that hog for the rest of that meat to get that all cut up, it wasn't even like they almost had to just sort of break even or lose money in exchange for not having to just throw the rest of the hog in the trash, because everyone wanted more bacon, and you couldn't sell them anything else off of that hog, which is not, doesn't have to be the case. I'm sure there's intelligent solutions to expanding a market, adding value to your products and whatnot. You can salt the pork probably and sell it online. I'm sure that gets into some legal stuff. But hogs are good. I'm sure I'll have some hogs, but I'm not as excited about them as a lot of other people. Oh, maybe that wasn't that guy that drove past me. I think I still see the truck. Yeah, okay. The truck that's camping on the side of the road over here is still camping, which means that the guy that was driving past me is just in a fucking hurry. Patrick said duck is not as fatty as chicken, therefore drier meat. Duck skin is great though. I don't recall that, but I won't argue it. Paul's Handyman say, Ray, do you have wolves or coyotes? Oh man, we got coyotes everywhere. This whole everything out here is coyotes. Now, what's neat is the Mexican wolf was extinct in Arizona, not in Mexico, but the Mexican gray wolf was extinct up here in Arizona, and they're back now. Not in high numbers, but we do have Mexican gray wolves here, out here somewhere, I'm sure if you could just like strip away all the vegetation and leave only the mammals somewhere around here, there's probably one Mexican gray wolf, but we do have those back. Patrick said goat meat is great and like pigs can be fed for free. Yeah, goat meat's amazing. I really like goat meat. I think a milk goat is probably one of the most valuable things you could have on a homestead. Mostly because I love the milk so much. Like that's what I have real experience with, is owning milk goats, milking them daily. My whole family being on raw, unpasteurized, fresh, just chilled, just milked this morning or last night goat milk. Every 24 hours, whatever isn't drank gets put into a Ziploc bag in the freezer, and that can all be used for all kinds of stuff later. But goat's milk is just great. And then goat's meat, although I have not butchered and eaten my own goats, I have had plenty of goat's meat, and I do like goat's meat. So I think a dual purpose animal like a goat that can really eat almost anything and survive on like really bad land, that's a super valuable addition to your homestead right there. Patrick said sheep require shepherding. Yeah, and I don't want anything to do with that. I don't want to have to like babysit my animals just to get them to move over to where the food is or to get out of the damn hailstorm. I've literally watched a sheep just getting rained on and hailed on, and it just stands there and I get it, their coat protects them to some extent, but then they're sick and they die the next day or the day after that or the day after that. They just seem to be really dumb, which doesn't surprise me. But mostly I just don't want to have to shear them. And I don't think the wool, for me, in a post-apocalyptic world, I'm not sure that I would value the wool. We're not talking about getting knocked back to the Stone Age necessarily. But yeah, I don't know if I value the wool enough to want to raise sheep. They may be something that I just cut out of the equation. Or, like I said, go volunteer. There's some places around here that raise sheep and sell them for the organic meat and the wool and whatnot. And I think I probably just need to go volunteer with one of them when it's time to do a bunch of shearing and just actually figure out if I hate that job as much as I think I would. Because I can grow cotton, honestly. Patrick said quail is a great alternative to chicken. I like quail. I haven't had the quail that people raise. What's it called? Can't remember the name. The breed that most, when I say people raise, I just mean what you see when all these people are buying quail from the feed store, you know, and raising them in these smaller little pens to eat. They're cool. I like quail. But my family loves chicken. We eat so much chicken that I really can't imagine it, like, assuming that there's no reason that you can't have a chicken tractor and 100 chickens, enough chickens to provide all the eggs and meat you'd ever want. I can't imagine that I would choose to add quail to the mix, at least for anything other than variety. Maybe for variety. But we already love, my household just loves chicken so much that we would eat it every day and be happy. It's just so tasty. 𝗟𝗘𝗔𝗥𝗡, good morning. Tony, if I'm remembering correctly. Pretty sure I am. Good to see you, Tony. Paul's handyman said, LMAO, you sent all the rain to us out of Kansas City, is that KC? Where are you doing the rain dance? Patrick said, it looks like you are on arid land. Yeah, Tucson, Arizona. Not great land out here. There's some good land, but most of it's not. I have very specific requirements for the land I'll be purchasing. Paul's handyman said, well, if you're setting up for the apocalypse, you might want to set up a community to defend the ranch. If you have food and people are starving, you're a prime target. Oh, I agree. This is the rabbit hole that you have to go down. You know, if you're trying to be a prepper. I mean, if you just keep carrying the logic out, just take one more step forward in time, what you end up finding is, you know, if the world goes to shit, there's no escape. There really isn't. But there is postponement. And I think my God, look how much empty land there is over here. I just want to go explore all of it. Yeah, the rabbit hole is, you know, let's say you're in the city and everything goes south. Well, you got about 3 days before it gets really crazy, because it's about 3 days. If everybody drinks whatever's left in their water bottle on Monday and there ain't no water coming through the pipes, and, you know, you're not necessarily going out in public because everyone's freaking out and the National Guard's not there handing out water or whatever. There's no water. And you're in Tucson, where there's no other place to get, there's not a river, you know, a few blocks away. There's not a stream down that hillside over there. There's no water for a place with 1 million people. You got about 3 days before the roving gangs start trying to get water. So if it all falls apart and you live in an apartment complex in the middle of Tucson, you're pretty screwed pretty quickly. If you live, let's say, on the edge of town, well, maybe you can, like, drive, you know, before things get unpassable. You can drive out a bit and go somewhere. If you live further outside of town, you're further from the people, but the hordes will find their way into the suburbs relatively quickly. And you have to remember what humans are capable of doing to each other when they think that death is an option, when they think that they might die if they don't do things that they would otherwise never even imagine themselves doing. You get further out, and you're pretty safe then, you know, especially if you have some land and you've set it up in such a way that your house is in a place where you can see all around and you know when people are coming. That can be a little bit safer as long as it's not a horde of people. But then the problem becomes, if you set yourself up on that land to be producing a lot of food, I mean, let's say you dig a giant pond, right? You've got solar panels, you've got an agricultural pump, you've got solar panels. By the way, a little trick, guys, you want a free pond. Doesn't have to be free necessarily, but if you want regulatory approval for a very real pond, you can get a permit to do a fish hatchery, which is a pond, and it's already full of fish that you're hatching, and you're just growing hatchlings and selling them to parks and wildlife so that they can stock rivers and lakes and stuff. But the cool thing is, if you got the pond already, if you've got the hatchery You've got the ducks, you've got the fish. Everybody knows you've got that body of water. Everybody knows that body of water. People around you and or the city, if you're selling your products into the city, and if people are allowed to come out. Like in Arizona, we have amazing laws actually. In Arizona, on agricultural land, as well as there's a few different zoning, but agricultural zoning is one. There is a homestead kind of zoning as well. You can set up a farm store. This blows my mind because, you know, the rest of the country is so much less free than this. Most of the rest of the country. We're not at the top of the heap, but you can sell just about anything you want from your farm that you've grown, including meat, without sending it through a USDA authorized, I don't want to call it a carniceria, because that's what we call them here, but a butcher. You don't have to do any of that here. If you raise it on your farm and you sell it from your farm stand on your farm, you can sell almost anything. It's pretty crazy. Milk products are more heavily regulated though. But where was I at? Boy, I can feel that limping kicking in. Oh, just Arizona has great laws for that. Where was I at before that? Backing up. Will he remember? Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right. It's a rabbit hole. Because yes, if the city understands what you have, well, they're going to be trying to come to take it. So now, if you want to make the homestead, well, now, like you said, you need people. You need guns. You need ammo. You need people. You need to build your structures in a more secure manner. And then you go even further out and you're like, oh, what if we're fighting the government at that point? Like, what if some particular little, you know, somebody's going to end up being in charge of like this neighborhood over here. If there's no government anymore, somebody will rise to the top and be the guy controlling this neighborhood. And there'll be a guy controlling that neighborhood. So when I say roving gangs, that's all I mean is each neighborhood is going to end up with some kind of hierarchy. They're going to put groups of men together to collect resources and try to enforce some sort of order. But they're going to fight each other. They're going to want and need resources. And then all of a sudden, whether it's them or the government, then you got to protect your land against organized people. So now you need to be, the rabbit hole never, ever, ever ends. So, you know, my first priority is just going to be to make sure the land can provide for me and my family. Second priority will also be, however, making it defensible to the extent possible. And as far as bringing people out there, I mean, you know, so you got to draw your line somewhere. And I'm not trying to build a new city. And I'm not trying to build, honestly, a community either. Not that kind of community. Like, a family community, yeah. If I can get my mom and her husband and my sister and her husband and her kids, and I mean, if I could get family out here, that'd be one thing. But I'm not looking to fill a ranch up with a bunch of people who are eager to go to war. I'd rather just get my peace and kind of hope that I can just build it in such a way that it's defensible, and then a little bit of finger crossing, just hoping the world doesn't go in a particular direction where ultimately, you know, there's groups of people slaughtering entire other groups of people for their land. Hopefully that doesn't become the case. I'm not quite trying to plan for that. Patrick said thumbs up. Patrick said, I bet people are eating more pork when shit hits the fan. Oh yeah. Paul's Handyman said the rest of the hog is actually really good. I agree, but man, the people I knew up in Prescott, they had orders for hundreds of pounds of bacon. People just saying, well, I'll give you my money now and you just give me whatever, if that means it's a year and a half away, whenever my order of bacon is ready, whenever you decide to get the hogs and grow them out. But they only wanted the bacon. I like the whole hog, man. Pigs, I think, are some of the best meat. Every part of the pig. There's not a part of the pig that I don't like to eat. Pork chop shoulder, boy. Patrick said, I love goat milk too. Most delicious. Dude, mine was amazing. It was sweet. My girls, Ginger and Marianne, just their milk was the sweetest and the fattiest, just thick and creamy. And goat's milk, by the way, is naturally homogenized. You put a thing of cow's milk in the fridge and all the cream rises to the top, and you have to mix it back in if you don't want to separate it. Most people separate the cream out anyways, but you know, for butter and whatnot. But goat's milk is naturally homogenized, so some cream, a very teeny tiny bit, does rise to the top. But out of like a standard carafe, I would say less than 1/4 inch of cream on the top, like about 1/8 inch, maybe 3/8 at the absolute most, on the weirdest milking. Maybe 3/8 over the course of a couple years was the most I saw, but it's usually more like 1/8 of an inch. So naturally homogenized. Paul's said wool is good for warm clothes. I prefer cotton though. Paul said quail is good. Barbara Flowers said, and I mean it, as wide open and naturally beautiful God can make something so lusciously beautiful. And you know, when you just want peace, it's wonderful to be able to live in that type of environment, a little space for yourself. That's my goal. I want my kids and my family to just live a human life. We haven't built this thing we've built these days with the technology even that I'm talking to y'all on right now. Just this whole thing we've built is not a natural human life. And I hate the idea that we've sort of plucked ourselves from our natural environment and placed ourselves into not just an unnatural place. I think I'm okay with it being unnatural to some extent if it was beneficial, you know, if it was somehow, if it led to us having just healthier and happier lifespans. But I don't feel like that's where we're at all. I don't feel like we're having healthier, happier lifespans. I feel like we're just, yeah, it's not a good situation we're in. And I want my kids, they're young enough now, if I can pull this off in the next year or two, like really, if I can pull this off, I can give my kids a more human life. Can't imagine anything better. As far as being a dad, what's my job? Can't imagine anything I could do for my kids that would be more beneficial for their, you know, I'm not religious. I wish I was, I'm not. You can't force it. I'm not religious. So, you know, I don't believe that this is just some little stop along the way. So if my kids' one and only very short 100-year lifespan is the only one they get, I want them to spend it being human. I don't want them to spend it in some weird, synthetic, scary, artificial, anxiety-ridden, loud, messy, mean place. That's not a life that I would wish on them. So to the extent that I can, I'm not saying I can, I'm saying to the extent that I can, if I can, I'm gonna try to give them something better. I'm gonna try to give them the kind of life that allows them to smell the smells like that I'm smelling out here. Look at this, it's beautiful. Look at it. Would ya just look at it, would ya? Look at that. I mean, it's just so pretty. And it smells so good. I want them to smell the things they're supposed to smell. I want them to feel like the sun on their skin, and I want that to be so normal that they don't notice it. And they don't walk out the door and wonder if they should rub some chemicals on their skin so they don't get a sunburn, or wake up in the morning and jump in the shower and rub some chemicals all over their body so that they can be clean. And just, it's just chemicals. You know, take them. God, I went to urgent care a couple months ago for a very minor infection. And it was like, I don't know what you call it. It's like when you get an ingrown hair, you know, but instead of just becoming like an itty bitty little pimple type thing, it got a little bigger than that. And I went to urgent care hoping that they could just open it and drain it and clean it. And then I would just keep it clean after that. Because I pay $2,000. No, what am I paying now? Oh my God, it's more than that now. It went up so much this year. I'm paying, dude, you won't believe this, like $2,800 a month, but for the best health insurance money can buy. So with all that I'm already paying, I want to use it, you know. I'm not going to lance open my own infection and clean it out myself when I'm paying $2,800 a month. So I went to urgent care hoping they could just open it and drain it for me. They refused. They said, nope, it's too small for us to do that. We're just going to give you antibiotics. And then the doctor was like, I do have an option. I don't know why they would ask this, but I was literally given an option between antibiotics that are good for MRSA and antibiotics that are not good for MRSA. So, you know, one's a weaker antibiotic, but it won't kill MRSA. The other one's a stronger antibiotic that will. And I'm like, I don't really want antibiotics, but I mean, do you have any reason to think it's MRSA? And he's like, there's just so much of it these days. It's almost like everything's MRSA now because it spreads so fast and because the antibiotics kill all the other ones. So we've built MRSA now. Thank you for that. And in the end, you know what I did was I said, give me the antibiotics for MRSA. I want the strong, powerful antibiotics. And I went and filled that prescription. And then I went and added it to my supply because I have legal, by the way, all prescribed and legal. There's actually, there should be a link for them in the description. It's not the wellness company. They're one of them. Jace case. I have Jace cases for every member of my family, plus extra orders of ivermectin, extra orders of like really powerful hydrocortisone, a lot of extra orders of a lot of extra medications on top of all the standard antibiotics and stuff, and EpiPens for adults, EpiPen juniors. I spent, I don't know, like $2,500, maybe closer to $3,000 for all my Jace case stuff. And then when I went to the doctor, you know, once I realized they weren't going to drain this thing for me, I'm like, screw it, give me the antibiotics. I got the strong ones for MRSA, picked them up, just added them to my Jace case. And then I lanced my own infection, drained it myself, cleaned it myself, had to keep draining it for like another week and a half, you know, washing it multiple times a day, keeping it clean, keeping it drained. It's gone now, you know. You don't need MRSA antibiotics for an ingrown hair that became more of a little infection. You don't need, that's the kind of crap that's just one little step at a time. It doesn't matter, you know. One guy getting one prescription for antibiotics doesn't create MRSA or turn the whole world into MRSA. But this attitude of just throw a pill at everything or throw a chemical at everything, it hasn't built something better for us, in my opinion. Patrick said there's one escape: faith in God, follow Christ. That's my plan. I wish I could agree with you. I really do. You can't force yourself to believe a thing that you don't believe. So I just don't believe. I'm not anti-God either. I'm trying to practice something new these days where I'm trying to talk to him a little bit. And yes, I recognize that it's ironic for me to say I don't believe in him and then to turn around and say I try to talk to him. I'm okay with just being a hypocrite, I guess, but I do try to talk to him here and there. I do have a sense of there being something, whether it's a him or a her, or whether that's an invalid question, you know. None of that really matters to me because I don't have any particular belief to begin with. But I have a sense of something bigger. I just don't have any sense that that I've been given any way to decipher what that is, you know. But I have been talking to it, him, whatever it is, a little bit. I'll tell you this, if there's a God, God knows exactly what it would take for me to believe. If God's plan is, nope, you only get the benefit of knowing me if you'll agree to believe in me without a good reason. And by reason, I don't mean evidence. I'm not diving into that rabbit hole. By reason, I mean whatever reason it is. It's just whatever it takes for my brain. There's a series of experiences. There's a series of perceptions that could take place that would trigger me to have faith. If I have to have it without those things, if the idea is I'm supposed to just want it bad enough to force it, because I've accepted it already. It's not like I'm not blocking it out. If I have to somehow force it, then it's not something I'm capable of believing in. So whatever it takes for me to be that guy, maybe someday I'll have that. Maybe someday I won't, but I have to plan my life under the assumption that there isn't anything after, and that my job is to make this as good as it can be. And I have to admit that that's an attractive prospect to me, because, you know, if this is a small piece of a bigger whole, number one, that's a strikingly convenient solution to a scary problem. The scary problem is, you know, I don't want to not exist someday. And it's a strikingly convenient solution to just say, oh, okay, well then you'll exist forever. Here's the magic that makes it so that you can go to bed at night not thinking about what happens when I die. Because here's the answer: you live forever and it'll be really, really happy and perfect, as long as you do this and say that. Very convenient. Like, I like that solution. That's a nice solution, but oftentimes nice solutions are not the solution. So for me, I do find it attractive to say, okay, what if this is it? Because if this is not it, then what I should do while I'm here either depends on my understanding of the Bible, which is always going to be different. I don't think there's two people on the face of this earth that have the exact same understanding of the Bible. There's not something canonical you can point to that everyone internally would fully agree on. So either I live my life with no responsibility of deciding for myself what is right, what is wrong, what is suffering, what is flourishing, what are good goals and bad goals. And I know a lot of people say, oh, those answers are all in the Bible. They're not. I've read it. I can't say I've read all of it. Like, to be fair, maybe 75% of it or something, but I mean, I've read it. I can find a good excuse. I can justify anything I want to justify with that book. I can justify all the good things I could do, and I could justify all the bad things I can do. And I watch everybody justify everything that they do with that book. So it's not useful for me to say the answers are in the book. I don't think they are. I think the book was written by men. So even if I could believe in God in a very real way, that's still a step away from me believing that that book is where I find the truth about that particular God. So, yeah, it's a lot. But for me, what I've decided is until I'm going to talk to him here and there, you know, I'm open. I really am. I'm fully open. I miss God. Losing my faith felt like losing a parent. It felt like the way that I imagine it's going to feel when I lose my mom someday. Except losing God took 10 years. So I imagine it feels much more akin to your mom slowly dying of cancer for 10 years. It was a painful, traumatic, and scary process for me to just simply lose, you know, somebody that, as far as I was concerned, loved me more than anybody in the world. It was very comforting. You know, having God is comforting. So not having God is discomforting. But I can't make myself believe a thing that I don't believe. So it'll happen, I suppose, when he sees fit. Unless, like I said, if the alternative is nope, I've got to just decide it and force it, you know, without it being sincere. Because I'll tell you what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to lie to God about believing in God. If he's real, I really can't imagine that he thinks the best way for me to go about this is going to be to very clearly not have any faith that he's real, and then to turn around and lie to myself and everyone I love and him and say that I believe it when I don't. That was actually how I ultimately lost my faith. If I wanted to make a really long story into a short story, I would say I just simply knew deep down inside that I didn't actually, the more I read the Bible, the less I believed. And I got to this point where I was just like, I don't actually have any faith. Maybe I have faith that there's quote unquote something bigger, but I don't actually have what most people would describe as faith. If faith has a definition, I didn't have anything that fit that definition, but I was proclaiming that I did. And I was lying to myself, and I was lying to everybody, because I was scared to death of what it would mean. You know, how angry is God going to be when he finds out I don't believe in him? And of course, then you have the epiphany, well, he's God, so he already knows. And now, not only is he mad at you for not having faith in him, or he's sad, depends on which part of the Bible you read, which is my point. You know, maybe he's sad instead of mad, but now he knows you don't have faith in him, and he's watching you go around lying to everybody, including yourself and including him. And I couldn't do that. I had to make a choice, and I had to say, look, man, either you admit to yourself what's true, or you go around being a coward who's too scared to admit what's true. And if I believe in anything related to a God, I have to believe that he cares about what's true, and that he wouldn't want me, that he would rather me, if I have to be lost for 40 years before I come back, then maybe that would mean I still have I'll be about 65, 66. Maybe I gotta just be lost for 40 years, but I'd rather be lost for 40 years and be honest about it and tell the truth than to be lost for 40 years lying about it for 40 years. Going to church and pretending I believe. Talking to other Christians, pretending I believe. Even worse, teaching my kids and telling them I believe something that I don't believe, and that if they ask me to give them a good reason to believe it, I can't give them one. I can give them a lot of reasons as to how it benefits them to believe it. It's useful. But something being useful doesn't make it true. It just makes it useful. And maybe that's enough. Who knows? Nims said, hello from Chicago. Love your content. Thank you. Barbara Flowers said, do you remember the movie Solid Green? I do not. At all. Weirdly. Barbara said, all of this chaos, it doesn't have to be this way, but man is so full of aggression and hate. He's made it so. I kind of agree with that. It's more than aggression and hate, but those are big contributors. Patrick said, the more people move away from Christianity, the worse the world becomes. The Bible teaches the type of life you want for your kids. Without it, we have lawlessness, just saying. Well, and that's what I mean, as I was just saying, it's useful for sure. Everything about it, I'm not going to, how do I put this? I can describe a mechanism by which religion can be maybe the best thing for society. Not even a great, not a good thing, not a great thing. I can describe a mechanism by which religion is the main evolutionary mover that results in a society, like a culture, you know, where we're not raping and pillaging and doing horrible things to each other nonstop all day, every day. I can definitely describe that mechanism. I definitely just already do believe it's true. Christianity, also always with a stupid caveat of I can justify anything I want to justify just by opening up a Bible, good or bad. But with all that being said, my and the United States' general, what's the word? Try to be careful with my words when I get onto these subjects. Let's call it the average Christian culture, if there's such a thing in America, if that were spread and practiced more, I can pinpoint some very direct and very real damage it would do, but I can pinpoint and specify much more very direct good it would do. You would have stronger, tighter families. There would be less unwanted teen pregnancy and just all kinds of stuff. We would all be living so much more like in communion with each other and with nature. I think it would be a more human lifestyle. But again, something being useful doesn't necessarily make it true. Something being good doesn't necessarily make it true. You can be all of those great things without being true. So for me, a lot of it, like I said, comes down to honesty, just internally with myself. I just can't, I either do or don't believe. It's not, a belief can't be forced. I can't look at this dove in the tree. You know, there's people that have very good arguments that that dove is not real. It's a machine, and birds, there's literally a birds are not real, you know, movement. But no matter how much you told me about it, I can't believe it unless I believe it. Ultimately, I either believe something or I don't. And I just have to say, I don't, you know. That's just the truth of the matter. And like I said, if God's real, God knows what it would take for me to believe in him. He can set up, I swear, he can choose to set that up for me. I can't say that I haven't asked him for it in a very sincere way. But you know, I'm not begging for it either. It'll be what it'll be. I'm very confident. I swear. Yes, you make sure that I can't talk when I walk past your yard. You've got it. You've done a great job of it. Every day. Don't really remember where I was at, but bottom line is, I definitely don't, from everything I did read in the Bible, he's not a big fan of lying. So I'm not going to lie to me. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm very confident that put it this way, judge a tree by its fruits. That's one of my favorite things from the Bible. And I've literally lived my life, maybe not fully based on that. I don't want to exaggerate that far, but I do judge myself based on my fruits. And my fruits they're good fruits. I've done harm in my life, absolutely. I've done way more good than harm, though. I'm raising some amazing, beautiful, healthy, intelligent children. I'm providing my wife with, you know, I think what is the best life that I can provide her. I'm on a path to providing my whole family with something even better. I have a very wide community of people here that I love, that love me, that I take care of, and they take care of me. We've got that strong bond. I have thousands and thousands of husbands and fathers on this channel who have put their family in a much better financial position, which means they've made their family more healthy and secure. So I think my fruits are good. And if nothing else, you know, if God chooses not to let me into heaven because I wasn't able to believe something, because I couldn't force a belief, or because I couldn't lie, that's on him, you know, that's not on me. That's all I got to say about that, I guess. My fruits are good fruits. But why said amen, Patrick. KJV Saint for Life said agreed, Patrick. Most people, even Christians, do what is right in their own eyes. The Mosaic law in the Old Testament is the most upright and moral laws known to man. Well, known to you. KJV said, whoever believeth have everlasting life. Patrick said, treatment secret, use bread as a dressing. It attracts all the bacteria from the wound to the bread. Interesting. I can see that. I could see that. Patrick said, you must read. I read a lot of God's word, and I wasn't happy about most of it. Edward said, I feel the same way. That's how we got the 25 acres I told you about. It may not be ranch-sized, but we don't need that much in Tennessee to raise what we need to feed the family. Yeah, 25 acres in Tennessee will do a lot, man. Jay Rory, good morning. Said, just joining. I started over from the beginning. Right on. Patrick said, I always thought that the delusion of theism is a very real and practical and superior delusion to atheism. I like that. Hey, Steve Spencer said, howdy, Ray. Just caught on that you were live. On my way to change out reverse osmosis filters. Have a great walk and keep up the good work, brother. I love my Bulletproof Handyman. Yeah, I love you too, sir, and this whole community. I do. I'm so blessed, and yes, I see the irony in using that word too. I'm allowed to just be a hypocrite, you know. I'm allowed to not have it all figured out, but I'm blessed. I live what I think is a godly life. Most of y'all wouldn't agree. If you're deep into your religion, you wouldn't call my life a godly life, because I say and do things that don't necessarily fit with what you'd think they should be, but I think I'm living a godly life, and I'm very blessed. KS said, I have a theory. We have two conscious minds. God is the subconscious that is connected to the universal network, not good or evil, just action. Subconscious, programmed by your conscious. That's cool. Patrick said, listening to you, I can tell he's calling you back to his son. He's not angry with you. He loves you just as he always did. I was a prodigal son too. Trust me, you'll never regret coming back to God. I just won't lie. That's really all. That's all it is. If whatever triggers would be necessary for me to end up back with his son or with him, if those triggers happen, they happen, you know, and that's where I'll be. I'm not going to force them, because I would need to believe that that's the true and correct goal in order for me to be taking extra action to force it. So what I do is what I agreed with actually one of y'all, Dan Vecchio, believe it or not, somebody that I wouldn't have expected. We just had a very long and respectful phone call. And at the end of that phone call, I just said, you know what, Dan, like I said, I'm not gonna put effort forth to come back into the fold, because like I said, I would need to already believe that that's the correct place to be. And if I already believed that, there wouldn't be any effort necessary to come back. But I said, I'll tell you what I will do though, because I've kind of enjoyed doing this throughout my life on rare occasions, but I have talked to him before after I stopped believing in him, and just had an honest conversation where I started it off saying, look, man, I don't really actually believe, but you know, I'm not telling you anything. You already know that. If you're real, you already know that I don't believe. So I'm just starting this off saying, hey, you know, just pure honesty up front. I don't believe, but I wish I did. I miss believing. So if you feel like bestowing on me whatever it is that's required for me to just actually believe, so that lying doesn't become part of the package, so that I'm not forced to lie about what I believe in order to be able to believe in it. If you can just give me that, I'd love to come back. But if you don't, I'm still going to be a good man. I'm still going to live what I consider to be a godly life, based on my interpretation of what that means, based on growing up in a mostly Christian culture. My values are all Christian, you know, I fully admit that's where they come from. But yeah, Dan got me to finally just say, you know what, I won't go out of my way to force a belief, but I'll tell you what I'll start doing, is I will go out of my way to open that door and allow him to make the choice about what he will or won't send through that door. KS Porch said, God is the wolf in your mind that you feed. Life of Bluegrass said, first of all, there is no atheist. There's no such thing. In the end, everyone finds God. We must pray it's not too late. Which God, though? Everyone believes in God in the end. KJV said, people think they can justify whatever they want by opening the Bible, but contextism, I've heard all of that. I can just read it word for word without any crazy interpretations, and I don't like a lot of what's in there. And I mean, yeah, of course, if God's real, then I'm wrong. But that's if the Bible is accurate, then I'm wrong. But either way, you know, it says what it says, and it says some pretty horrible things in some places. Paul Dardo said, good morning, sir. Patrick said, try this, ask yes, no. I'm not gonna beg anybody for anything, I would have to believe before I would beg. You would have to be a thing that I consider to be real before I would ever beg anybody for anything. KJV said everyone sins, that's why salvation is not achieved by turning from sin. Yeah, sin isn't something I think about either. I'm just a good person or I'm not. I think I'm a godly person. I think I'm living a godly life, regardless of whether the mechanical faith is there. Patrick said, when reading the Bible, you may understand what you're reading, but without discernment of what you're reading, beg the Father for discernment. I won't beg. Until I mean, if I believed, of course, then it wouldn't be begging. It would just be doing the right thing, but I would have to believe before I would beg. Patrick said, you may be lying to yourself for personal reasons. I was doing that when I left God. Well, I mean, I'm not now. That's kind of the point. I was lying to myself when I said I had faith, not when I gained my faith. When I gained my faith, it was very, very much real. It was the realest thing that had ever happened to me, the most powerful thing that had ever happened to me, sincerely. I mean, it changed my entire life in a good way. It was positive. But again, something being good doesn't make it true. It just makes it good. But, what's that? Okay. The whole point of when I lost my actual faith, the loss of the faith happened. And then the lying started because I lied to myself about what I did or didn't believe. And what I'm doing today is actually being honest with myself by saying, as much as I would love to believe, I'm not going to force it, I'm not going to fake it, and I'm not going to lie about it. I just don't believe. In a very respectful way, you know, all my values are still Christian. I'm teaching my children Christian values. I'm just not telling them that it came from anything outside of what they can feel and perceive on this earth. Paul said, Ray, I pray for you and your family every day so that you and your family will be blessed. Thank you, Paul. I love you, brother. Paul, you've become an amazing friend for me. A lot of y'all from this community have become like truly. I used to say before I had this YouTube channel, I had one friend. Sometimes I'd say two. There was one other friend that we had a falling out. We talk again these days, but it's not the same. But I used to say I had one friend, period, end of story. That was Chris. Paul, you know Chris. Since I've started this channel, you know, I can honestly say, and I don't want any of y'all to feel left out, I'm just being honest. Edward Pitkin, Paul Dardeau, and Mike Neal, the three of you are friends. Yeah, like y'all have become family. Patrick said, humble yourself. I don't see value in humbling myself. KJV said, we just love you, Handyman. We want to see you in the afterlife. I don't mean to be pushy. It's okay. I understand that almost, not all of y'all, but almost all of y'all, and trust me, more than 100 of you have put in some very real, very sincere time on the phone, over text, via email, in live streams, and in person. Easily somewhere in the ballpark of 100 of y'all have put some very real time into trying to say and do whatever you feel, you know, would bring me back into the fold. And I appreciate it. I do know that it almost always, not always, but almost always comes from a place of love. So it doesn't bother me a bit. I just can't be where I'm not at, you know. Patrick said, I have two friends only, God and Jesus. Yeah, see, and I have tons, and I like having tons of friends. I want to have all of the friends that I have, and still happy. Well, that's good. I'm happy, and I love all of y'all, and I'm happy, you know, I want the fruits that come from me to be those good fruits that help you guys succeed as well. So with all that being said, there's that beautiful American flag. I love you guys. I hope you're out there killing it, and I'll see you all on the next one.